What's up, everybody? Welcome to my reaction video. That's right, today I'm going to be reacting to some of my brother's videos. JJ.man.does.politics. Don't know why he put the periods there. Anyway, he's got 409 videos, oh my god. He's got 147 subscribers, much more than me. And he, as the name implies, mainly does politics stuff. So that's a 1 hour long gameplay. We're gonna react to his US President's tier list. This is his old one, and by the way, if you're questioning why there's game theory captions on everything, it's because I have a Mappadify Google Chrome extension thingy. Don't pay attention to it. But this one, controversial warning, but this is the updated one. I'm gonna watch the updated one because not only is it shorter, but it's updated better.
What's good? I'm finally recording something again. Commentary videos. So I'm doing an updated president's tier list. This one, the one I did was kind of outdated, and I didn't really have a whole lot of research. And also, I've actually created my own tier list now. If you read, I don't know if you can read the little things. It's blurry. But essentially, top tier says
voting on a statue, and you have great, acceptable, mid at best, kind of crap, and just god awful. So yeah, that kind of better helps you understand how those presidents actually were. So first off, George Washington. I don't think there's really any debate about this.
deserves a statue, obviously.
I mean,
Has plenty.
yes, I'm going to be pausing a lot. I mean, there's a little bit of a debate, but this is his opinions, not mine. Maybe I'll make a president's tier list one day, once I also do more research like he is doing. But I don't think he's deserving of a statue, but I do think he was exceptional. Back to my brother talk.
So we're just going to go ahead and throw him in that tier. John Adams, I used to have him at what would be the kind of crap area. And that was just because of the Alien and Sedition Acts. But one of my friends brought up a good point saying, well, you got to remember what time period it was. And I mean, that doesn't really fully justify the signing of that act, of those acts. I think there were 3 or 4 of them. But it still does, kind of make me go a little more lenient on him. So I've bumped him up to mid at best because he did have some good, he did have good foreign policy. So he does have that going for him. Thomas Jefferson, great. Want to talk about foreign policy, Thomas Jefferson is your guy for foreign policy. Maybe the purchase of the Louisiana Territory was a little bit,
The purchase of the Louisiana Territory was definitely good. But again, this is his opinions, not mine. I do think that he might have been a bit exceptional. Again, I actually haven't done that much research, but I do know, I know the presidents, and I do know things that they did. I'm not completely blind, but I will do a tier list video of my own at some point of the presidents and do my own research at some point, because this has inspired me. Anyways.
Maybe you could bump him down to acceptable because of the Embargo Act of 1807. But, overall, I still think Thomas Jefferson was a very great president. James Madison, he was acceptable. He got us into the War of 1812, which, pretty bad, but he did also ensure an American victory in the War of 1812, so that's kind of forgiven-ish. James Madison, other than that, he was kind of just mediocre, but War of 1812 does kind of boost his name a little bit. Monroe is also going to go in this great category, simply for the Monroe Doctrine, which, didn't really prohibit, but it kind of swayed Europeans away from American, from sticking their nose in the Americas, which would be kind of hypocritical later, as America would do the same thing in areas like the Middle East and Europe, but Monroe did not know that at the time, so can't really attack him for it. J.Q. Adams. Okay, now this one, I'll put him in the same tier as his father, mid at best. John Quincy Adams didn't really do much when he was president, and I do probably attack him a little bit more than I should for the corrupt bargain, which got him the presidency in the first place. Really, because in that election, Jackson, who we'll actually get to here in a minute, did get more electoral votes as well as winning the popular vote, but because he didn't get a majority, they had to vote on it, and then for some reason they decided, hey, John Quincy Adams should actually be president. Don't really get it. Henry Clay, that's one of the oopsies.
Yeah, that was a very great point that my brother just made. If they win more popular votes and more electoral votes, that's a 2 for 2. Like, why should they not be president? That's kind of stupid, and apparently a lot of other people agree. It was completely against the rules of the Electoral College. Anyway.
I think Henry Clay did. Other than that, I mean, Henry Clay wasn't that bad, but he's not on this list since he was never elected president. So, we were just talking about him. Andrew Jackson. Oh boy, where do I start with Jackson? His handling of the nullification crisis, I mean, pretty good. In terms of an actual politician, he was pretty alright. But then there's the Trail of Tears. Yeah, I can't put him anywhere above mid at best. Simply because of the Trail of Tears. I think because of the Trail of Tears, I had him at kind of crap, but, you know. No, if it wasn't for the Trail of Tears, he'd be at acceptable, lean great, honestly. But just because of him kickstarting the Trail of Tears. Speaking of, hello, Martin Van Buren. Yeah, Indian Removal Act, just absolutely not. You're lucky I don't put your boy Jackson in that same tier with you. And honestly, he was kind of a lame duck. Like, other than signing the Indian Removal Act, the rest of his presidency, he was just kind of a lame duck. He didn't really do much, so, I mean, I can't really judge him on much else other than the Indian Removal Act, so that's what I'm mostly going to judge him on. William Henry Harrison. Speaking of little to judge on, Harrison, 1 month. 32 days to be exact. Harrison didn't do much, so I kind of have to put him at mid at best. Because, again, he didn't royally screw up the presidency, but he also didn't really accomplish much. He did give the longest inaugural address in American history, so just for that I'll bump him up to acceptable. John Tyler, I used to have him in just god-awful, but he really didn't do much to hurt the country. I mean, he absolutely did nothing to help it, but he didn't really do much to hurt it either, so I'll put him in kind of crap. Polk, acceptable. Alright, we finally get some good politicians in here. Polk did start an unjustified war against Mexico, sure, but once again, he won that war, and not too many Americans died. Not too many Mexicans died either. And it was just to expand America. But, you know, other than that, Polk's president.
Okay, I got a lot to say about that. So, no offense to my brother for anything I say in this video later. But I was already kind of iffy on what he was saying, but he's saying that it was just to expand America's territory. That's an excuse that can be made for a lot of the messed up stuff that America did and debatably is still doing. I do not agree with that argument whatsoever. I do not know why that would be considered a good excuse. Unprovoked wars against any country is stupid. But anyway, let's just continue.
Presidency was actually not that bad, and he did decide not to run for a second term, which was probably for the better because he would die a little bit into what would have been his second term anyway. Zachary Taylor. For this guy, I'm going to put him in. It's kind of crap. Lean mid. I mean, I could see why you could put him in the mid at best, but Zachary Taylor was just inexperienced as heck when it came to politics, and especially the presidency, so I can't really put him higher than kind of crap. Millard Fillmore. Fillmore didn't do much. Mid at best. Franklin Pierce. No. Buchanan. Oh God, no. Buchanan. He didn't really do anything to prevent the South from seceding. Because, yes, while Lincoln being elected is what motivated the South to secede, it was in December of 1860 when the South started seceding, specifically on December 20th, when South Carolina did. And Buchanan was still president at that time. He could have stopped it. He could have just been like, hey, nope, this is unacceptable. We're going to send Union troops down to the South to crush this uprising. But he didn't. And that ultimately led to the Civil War being as bad as it was. Sure, it probably would have been like a violent, almost massacre in the South, but I still think I'd prefer that over a 4-year-long brutal civil war that just left much of the nation destroyed and killed. I think it might have killed millions. I'm pretty sure. I know it was thousands, but it may have killed millions. I'm not sure about the death toll of the Civil War, but I know it killed a lot of people, especially for that time. Speaking of Lincoln, once again, no introduction. Everyone knows who Abraham Lincoln is.
Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. Our boy Abe. Honest Abe. Never lies. Definitely deserving of a statue. Not only is he deserving of a statue, but he got one. Multiple. Definitely a good president. Worked his way through the Civil War best he could. And, he did, I'm gonna say this, I agree that he's deserving of a statue, but I feel like if we're going for more, not just singular opinion, but opinion of the masses, you'd probably bump him down to great, because he was actually one of the only presidents to break state constitution, because he didn't want people to, go against the Union during the Civil War, which is probably just trying to be safe, but still breaking the whole freedom of the press and freedom of speech. But that's really all you can get him for.
He is going to be in the deserves a statue once again because he already has plenty. All right, Andrew Johnson. Okay, yeah, we had 2 god-awful presidents in a row, had one of arguably the best president in our nation's history, and then we had arguably the worst. I think Buchanan is the worst, just because, well, he didn't do anything to prevent the Civil War. Andrew Johnson had a horrible outlook on Reconstruction, so boo-hoo Johnson. Grant. Okay. So, Grant's tricky. So, yes, his administration was very corrupt. It's more of, he wasn't a bad person, he just made bad decisions in his presidency. For that reason, I'm going to put him in acceptable. He was a good president, not going to lie. But his administration that he appointed wasn't. So that's kind of
The fact that you say that he's not a bad president, but the administration he appointed was corrupt, that makes him bad president by proxy. If he himself appointed the, again, haven't done a lot of research on that topic, but I'm just assuming that if you are the one who appointed the corrupt administration, you are also corrupt by proxy. So I think you should at least bump him down to mid at best. Just saying.
What does that for him? Rutherford Hayes. All right, so this one's really changed for me. Used to have him at acceptable. I used to think he was a pretty great president. But now that I'm really thinking about it, no. I think I would have preferred Tilden, honestly, over Hayes. And I think I'm going to put Hayes mid at best. I mean, I think Tilden would have been a much better president than Hayes. I mean, like, name one fairly good thing that Hayes did. I will name a bad thing that Hayes did. He ended Reconstruction way too early. Reconstruction ended way earlier than it should have. And that led to a whole lot of racial segregation in the South. Yes, I mean, there was some of it in the North, but mostly in the South. And it was really bad, especially with the KKK. And Reconstruction going on for longer would have kind of helped that. But because of Hayes, he had to end Reconstruction just to be the president. So, yeah, just thumbs down Hayes. Garfield. I think Garfield was actually pretty good. Can't put him in great because, once again, wasn't in office long enough to make any notable changes. But in his year and a half, I think, that he was in office for before his assassination, he was pretty good. I mean, yeah, great president. I'm going to put him in the same tier as Harrison. Chester Arthur. Not much to be said about him. I mean, he's honestly really a forgettable president. One of the most forgettable, in fact. Grover Cleveland. Alright, so Cleveland. Where are we going to start with you? Acceptable. Grover Cleveland, acceptable. That's really all that has to be said about him. Benjamin Harrison, very corrupt. I'm going to put him in kind of crap. Corruption, one word. That's really it. McKinley, what's good, McKinley? All right, I think I actually, honestly, I think I used to have McKinley in just god awful. I think I did. But now I have him at mid at best. And once again, he didn't really pass too much to kind of destroy the country. But he didn't, I mean, he did have some good policies during his presidency. He was assassinated like 1 year, not even, into his second term, so there's that. Alright, Theodore Roosevelt. You all know how I feel about Theodore Roosevelt, I think. Deserving of a statue. He is my number one president. I rank him slightly above Lincoln. Lincoln is my number two. So, yeah, just, there's Roosevelt. Alright, Taft. Taft is just Taft. Roosevelt, actually, Taft was Roosevelt's handpicked successor, so you'd think that I'd put Taft a lot higher, but Taft, he was just too much of a staunch conservative for my liking. And I think Roosevelt, by 1912, kind of realized this, and that's why he ran for president in 1912 as a progressive candidate against Taft. But honestly, I think that was probably Roosevelt's biggest oopsie, Roosevelt's biggest goof, was running for a third term in 1912. Why was that such a big goof? Because that gave us this handsome man, Woodrow Wilson. Yeah, Wilson, yikes. He was only elected because Roosevelt did what he did. running for a third term. If Roosevelt hadn't have done that, I honestly don't know if Taft could have beaten him anyway. But I know that if Roosevelt won in the primary, the Republican primary, and he was the Republican candidate, he would have destroyed Wilson in that election. And then we would have had Roosevelt for our president in World War I, which I think would have went much better than it did. Roosevelt would have absolutely made sure that Germany had no way of coming back up. Wilson, he wanted Germany to actually be a fairly strong nation coming out of World War I. Plain ridiculous. I don't know why Wilson wanted that. So that's
So this is a bit of a controversial topic for me to talk about, but coming out of World War One, the things that happened in Germany, its army being reduced to 100,000, and them having to pay a redonkulous amount of money, I feel like it would have actually been better for them to be a bit of a stronger country coming out of World War One, because of the horrible things. I say horrible. It was horrible for the people in Germany because the army was reduced and the money that they had to pay was ridiculous. So, I'm just saying, if they were stronger coming out of World War One, I feel like World War Two might have been prevented. Because the reason Hilter, Funny Mustache Man, or at least a big reason why it happened sooner than it probably should have, was because he was absolutely fuming and furious about Germany having to pay all that money and its army being reduced. And also, the only reason that the people wanted Hitler to be chancellor and his rise to power happened was because the people were also mad about the things that happened to Germany coming out of World War One. So it might have still happened, but it would have been a lot slower, in my opinion. So yeah, that's why I think that's not really that big of a deal. So I would bump them up to kind of crap.
That is why, also, very racist policies. Sure.
Never mind, very racist policies, keep them in just got off.
He did get the women's suffrage started, but that's because he was kind of pressured into doing that. He didn't want to, but, rebellions, not really rebellions, but uprisings, too much for him. He didn't like protests, so he had to do that. Harding. Kind of crap. Harding was just a horrible human being. Not even as, like, a politician, just a horrible human being. He would throw massive beer parties in the White House. Mind you, this was during Prohibition. So, Harding, what are you doing, man? Like, Harding, we need to talk. I mean, Harding did come out and admit that he probably shouldn't have been elected to the presidency. He died 2 years into his presidency. There's that. Because of his death, though, we got Calvin Coolidge. Cool Cal, I think was his nickname. Mid at best. I think I used to have him at great. Definitely isn't deserving of that. I wouldn't even say he's deserving of acceptable. But, mid at best. I think he's, like, upper mid-levels in terms of this ranking. So there's your ranking for Coolidge. Herbert Hoover. Alright, Hoover, there's not much that needs to be said about you. The Great Depression, 1929, tried combating it, absolutely failed. In fact, he probably made it worse. And yeah, so Hoover, just good job. Unemployment rates through the roof. Prices too high for the average American to afford. It honestly almost parallels our current administration, but I'm not going to touch too much on that. So yeah, and now FDR comes along. What's good, FDR? You're acceptable. Alright. FDR, definitely not deserving of a statue. I don't know why he has so many, because he is not deserving of any of them. FDR, he was FDR. Sure, his New Deal policies did help America for that time, but also he put Japanese Americans in concentration camps, and that was kind of a no-go, Mr. Roosevelt.
Excuse me? I did not know that. You see, this is why I need to do my own research. FDR, I thought he was this great guy that came after Herbert fucking Hoover. But no, put Japanese people in concentration camps? And he's acceptable. Bump him down lower. Not even mid at best. Put him in kinda crap. Oh my god.
And a whole bunch of other things. He possibly, I'm not going to say he did, but he possibly prolonged the Great Depression by multiple years, which also not great, because that was one of the worst, if not the worst, economic period in American history. So there's that.
Not just American history, but in the world's history, because every nation was affected by this, including Australia. That's why the New War happened. Yeah.
Now on to Mr. Truman. Truman, he's known for standing up strongly to communism. He's also known for authorizing the atomic bombings of Japan at the end of World War II. I kind of understand why he made that decision, because, you know, a land invasion would have been brutal, and I won't say impossible, but difficult, very difficult to pull off. And he also kind of set the precedent for what would be the Cold War, for the future presidents to come after him, to dealing with the Soviets, which was, don't give those darn commies an inch because they don't deserve a centimeter. Alright, that was kind of his attitude towards the Soviet Union, especially when it came to the Korean War. He did not want to give those commies an inch. Then again, he was also a cool-headed compromiser. He didn't want to obliterate the world with nuclear weapons. But he also did not want communism to win at all. So he kind of had to find that balance, which would prevent the world from being obliterated by nukes, but also keep communism at bay and far away from America's.
Stood up strongly to communism. I didn't get the meaning by that. That's why I pointed at the flag. But if stood up strongly to communism means that, then I would bump lower. I'm gonna give my thoughts in a later video. Get in the comments if you're whiny that I like communism.
Perfect and surely unwar-torn shores. Eisenhower, I actually really like Eisenhower. Eisenhower, he was a very, also strongly against communism. Just a great leader for the time. That was the Cold War.
Deserving of a statue?
He was also a great general in World War II, but that's besides the point. So, yeah, 3 words. I like Ike. Alright, that's all I'm going to say about him. Kennedy. Alright, Kennedy. So, he's definitely great. Kennedy is definitely great. Is he deserving of a statue? First off, why is Eisenhower in that tier? I don't think he's quite deserving of a statue, but I do think he was great. So, Kennedy. Where do we place Kennedy? Alright, why not? Deserving of a statue, that's where I will place Kennedy. All right, Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson, I honestly can't decide if this guy is over or underrated. I'm going to say underrated, honestly. Depending on who you talk to, really. Lyndon Johnson, Civil Rights Act of 1963. Great job, Lyndon B. Johnson. Or was that 64 or 65? I don't know. All I know is Civil Rights Act. And he also gave one of the best speeches, in my opinion, in American history. For that reason, well, Lyndon Johnson, the economy under his administration wasn't great. Vietnam War, that's the thing I was looking for. Mid at best for Lyndon B. Johnson. Was good, Nixon. We all know what's happening with Richard Nixon. Watergate scandal. No. Just Nixon. Honestly, I like Nixon's backstory. He had a good story leading up to his presidency. Lost the election of 1960. Lost the governor election in California. He was considered politically dead, and then he proceeded to win the presidential election of 68 and 72 in landslides. So there's Nixon for you. Now, his successor, Gerald Ford. Ford. Mid at best. I'll give Ford that mid category. Ford, he was just Ford. Jimmy Carter, I used to have him at mid at best. Can't really see myself putting him there. Iran hostage crisis, just no. And he also had unemployment pretty high. Economy just wasn't doing great under his administration. This is why he lost to Reagan as bad as he did.
Speaking of Reagan, here comes some of the most recent presidents and the ones that are most talked about. We got Ronald Reagan. I think is that George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush? I do not know. I think it's George H.W. Yeah, because with the presidents for 3 and 2 terms, he didn't put him twice. So that's George H.W. Yeah, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden. I can't wait to see where he puts these.
Speaking of Mr. Reagan, here we are, Ronald Reagan. Alright, so, depending on who you talk to, Reagan is either the best or the worst president in U.S. history. I'm going to put him somewhere in the middle. Acceptable. Reagan was a very, very strong anti-communist. But he was also, met with Chinese and Russian leaders. He actually visited the Soviet Union. And I believe Gorbachev also visited the United States under his administration. Star Wars program, that was something under Reagan. He was very big into space exploration, which I think was a big step for our nation that happened under his administration. Reaganomics. For the time, Reaganomics helped the nation. You know, the nation was kind of bent down on one knee after the Carter administration. Reagan kind of helped pull that up a little bit, but now that stool is kind of wearing out and decaying. All right, that's kind of the situation. So we can't lay on that decaying stool forever. So we gotta get a new economic policy. But yeah, for the time, Reaganomics was an okay compromise. And I don't want to say he single-handedly ended the Cold War, because he didn't. But he was definitely one of the guys that was, he was great for that time where the Cold War was coming to a close, but wasn't over quite yet. And Reagan just kind of helped speed up that process a little bit. Mostly with fiery speeches. And so, like, fiery speeches like the 1987 Berlin Wall speech. One of, if not the best, I won't say the best, it's definitely not the best, but it's in my top 3 speeches in American history. Definitely my favorite Cold War speech. That is fact. That speech, like, chills when you first listen to it. Kennedy's speeches, it honestly kind of almost mimics Kennedy's charisma. And that is a strong thing when delivering strong speeches, that gets this idea in people's heads, especially at that time, that, hey, this system isn't working, we need to tear it down. And that was kind of the message that Reagan helped push through to the German people of East Germany. And it would work. 2 years later, that wall came down, and then a year after that, Germany reunified. And then a year after that, the Cold War ended. So, there's that. Speaking of the end of the Cold War, Mr. Herbert Walker Bushy. So, Mr. Bush, where are we going to put this guy? Mid. That's where we're going to put him. He was...
Sorry for interrupting your explanation, brother, but my opinion on the whole Ronald Reagan thing, bump a kind of crap. Because of one reason, and one reason alone. Contra. For any of those who are not familiar with Contra, again, based on my analysis, Contra was him sending so-called freedom fighters to countries, but they ended up just being for nothing but just more hostility towards smaller countries. Again, I will do my own research, but just because of Contra, put him down to kind of crap.
He was alright. Herbert Walker Bush, he didn't really have any, like, major mistakes during his presidency. He didn't have too many big goofs. I think he was just really unpopular. For whatever reason, he was kind of seen as that kind of meh. Like, after the chaos that was the Reagan era, people were expecting, like, a strong, charismatic leader like Reagan, and Herbert Walker Bush just wasn't that. He was kind of just your average politician. He had some good policies. He was definitely a figurehead in ending the Cold War, like Reagan, but he just didn't have that same evangelical feeling towards the Republican Party and the nation as a whole. So he was good, but he wasn't great. That's what I have to say about Mr. Bush. Bill Clinton. What's good, Bill Clinton? Mid at best. Bill Clinton, honestly, he was a pretty good president during his time, but then there was the Monica Lewinsky scandal, the impeachment, all that stuff that kind of made me distrust him a little bit. So, yeah, I don't like scandals, as you could probably tell. Scandals, they don't paint a good picture, especially for the president. Alright, now Mr. W. Bush. Unlike your father, I'm gonna say it point blank, you were a piece of shit. I'ma just say, god awful. There's Mr. W. Bush for you. And I can name off a list of reasons. First off, his handling of 9/11, his handling of Hurricane Katrina, the Iraq invasion, the Patriot Act, the No Child Left Behind program. Those are my main 5 reasons. I'm sure there's other things you can find on him, other dirt you can get on him. Alright, Obama. For Obama, his first term, okay. His first term was actually not bad. Second term, ouchies. Obama, he kind of came into the presidency with this idea of hope, this idea of a new nation, this idea of we're going to get stuff done. Did he? Not really. His Obamacare program has saved millions of American lives. So good job, Obama. But, I mean, the economy was alright during his administration. Economy wasn't struggling, but it wasn't booming. So I'm going to have to throw him in mid at best. Because of Obamacare, and other than that, he didn't bring all of his promises. So that's for Obama. I can't really dislike the guy, though. I mean, he was an alright president. Alright, now we get into the controversial two. I was debating whether or not I should even do these two, but we're going to, because, well, video time. Mr. Trump. Where are we going to put Mr. Trump? He is actually running for president this year, as most of you probably know. If you're watching this video, you probably know that he's running for president. So his first term was 2017 to 2021. Honestly, his first term was a little up and down. 2017, it's like, okay, I'm not sure if I like his demeanor, but he's doing alright. 2018, alright, it's getting a little better. 2019, oh my god, this guy might not actually be that bad. 2020. Just, 2020. I think everyone remembers how bad 2020 was. 2020 needs no explanation. 2020 was just the year of COVID. And not just COVID, Trump's horrible handling of COVID. I think we can all be honest with ourselves here. Wasn't that great. Not saying Biden would have handled it any better, but Trump absolutely did not handle it the best he could have. Alright. So, for that reason, I'm going to have to knock him down to mid at best. He's not up there. Alright, he's not up here. Okay, he's just him. He's mid at best. You could even argue kind of crap for Trump. Speaking of the kind of crap tier, that is exactly where Mr. Biden is going. Mr. Biden, you were just... He's our current president, and he's definitely not one of our worst. I'll say that about him. He's not one of our worst. But I think he reminds a lot of people of the Carter era, which wasn't great. He's a lot like Jimmy Carter in that sense. And I think we can all speak for ourselves. Biden has just not been a great president. He also has a fairly good story. You know, he served as senator, I believe, for like 40 years, 38 maybe. Served as the vice president under Obama for like 8 years. And then he's our current president. So he's probably... I don't think he's going to win a second term. But then again, I don't think it's impossible, per se, for him to be reelected. But I see it as highly unlikely. Because Trump's polling numbers are just amazing right now. Biden could do it, but I highly doubt it. Especially with how unsuccessful his presidency has been. And how overly over-the-top amazing everyone thinks Trump's presidency was. I mean, his presidency wasn't over-the-top amazing, but it wasn't that awful. For most people. For some people, it was one of the worst administrations they've lived through. But honestly, a lot of people could say the same about Biden. Me being one of those people, because, well, I've only lived through 3 administrations. Those being Obama, Trump, and Biden. So, out of the 3, yeah, the Biden administration, I believe, has been the worst. So, that is going to do it for ranking U.S. presidents.
Okay, I've got some words about the Biden situation. I am not saying that he shouldn't be in kind of crap. In fact, I think he is snug there. Especially because of the "we stand with Israel" that, again, I will express my opinions later, but that was probably the thing that put the nail in his soon coming coffin. And I believe Trump should also be bumped down to kind of crap. But that's basically all I have to say about this video. That's probably gonna be it. Brother, if you watch this, which, let's be honest, you probably will. I actually think that this was pretty good, but like most of them were like, okay, or that's really good. But then there was only a couple that I was like, the but that's basically it. Anyway, see all you guys later.